To go to Tema today.
Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Very well, sir.
Good. Is that Ifwa?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Waiting for the rest of your colleagues, all right?
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Nat. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir. I hope you are keeping safe.
I'm keeping safe. I can see you are chilling at the background, cool on your bed.
I'm very tired. That's why I'm
You're
lying
tired.
down.
Okay.
My colleagues are saying they are unable to join. I think maybe they're in the waiting room or something.
Oh, no, even this one, I didn't put anybody on the waiting room. Let me check.
Because they are complaining. They are saying they are trying.
Oh, hold on. Let me
But
share
as of
that.
now, it's just nine participants. I think they are still.
Hold on. Let me make sure I share the link again, okay?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'll share the link again. Nathaniel, let them know that the link has been shared again. They should just click on the link.
Sammy, why are you hiding? As for Miss Crown, she's always, quiet.
Is it all?
Unlike that.
Shall what's up?
I did for you, bro.
If you did the background, the picture for
But I will make you know say the Zoom there, Charlie, me I did for.
me not the see. Me not the see.
I tell you, Charlie. Me are the teach Smith.
Everyday Smith. Like you down the chase one woman.
Hey, what's that? You for stadium.
They be Smith. They be Smith. Why? Oh.
What is a fisherman?
If you go take your woman way, they won't talk to her. We did.
Dog day, me here be roadside, like I talk something. You for steady.
Onishi Kamasa.
Don't worry, Franco get you.
Nathaniel.
Yes, sir.
How did you get into the room?
I used the link, the initial link you sent to the page. Then they asked.
And they asked you about, yeah.
So it was said that it's for only authorized persons. So I just logged in my Gmail details and then I entered.
So they
Yeah,
should
That's
use
what
their Gmail because
Yes,
this
when
one
you-
doesn't even. I don't even make you wait in the waiting room. You just come in direct. So they should use their Gmail account that they use to register for Zoom.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to explain to them.
Yeah.
So I'll do that again.
Because I provided even the ID and the username and the password. That's the ID and the password.
Yeah.
Charles is here. He come no, he can't write in. Ah, this boy pan.
Kizito and Charles Smith.
Oh, but the boy come no, he can't write in him.
Is it so? Why are you typing your index number? It's too early.
Is it your concern? Is it your index number?
Because Charles typed if you know, yeah, also type copycat.
Let me type my correct.
Sure. It is too early. Damn, don't type anything. I'll delete it.
But you can't, please. I'm in charge here.
Attempt to type it. You see what I'll do.
MADC 190. Literally. I'm not gonna share my screen. Babe, my sticker is messing up again, no. What?
Nathaniel, how far are they logging in now? Because I can see the number have moved towards 26.
Yes, I think they are now trying to create the
You see,
Zoom account.
some
so
of
that they
them
can
are
log in.
using different, how do you call it, handheld devices. So some of them,
Exactly.
if this thing doesn't recognize it, it will ask you to log in with your credential. That is, everybody needs to have a Zoom email address and a password.
Exactly.
Aha. Which means that you can also create a Zoom this thing for only 40 minutes if you don't have the premium, how do you call it, version. So that's what it means. So they should try and register with their email address and create a Zoom account. Then they will use that one to enter. If they ask them about the ID have been provided and the password, they can use
Password
that one
as well.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay. All right.
So let them be aware. I've already provided that information on the WhatsApp page for them.
Yes, sir.
And some of them, I'm sure, have changed their other. And if you don't have, tell them if they don't have the Zoom platform on their smartphone or handheld device, that one too is another challenge. They need to actually download, sorry.
Yes,
Nathaniel, how many people are we expecting? We have 30 now, 31.
Because it's a combined class, it should be around 50. Usually when you have a combined class, the average attendance is around 50, 55 thereabouts.
Are you sure? Are you no more than that?
Yes, we are more, but usually when it's a combined classes, the average, I think, is around 50, 55.
We have about 30 now. Okay, I think we should start. A recorded version will be provided. Time is running.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right. Last week, we started with what we call project implementation or execution and control mechanism. And we look at, what entails in the project when we start with its activation and its execution. The activation is to all the planning process that we put in place. There should be a point whereby we say the project has started or the inception of the project. And that one we start with, all the necessary things that needs to be put in place. So for the project to start its execution or its inception, there is a need for all the necessary resources, manpower, like human resource, and also making sure that logistics are available for its implementation. And we made mention of something we call the Gantt chart. And the Gantt chart just tells you the project activities and the timeline and how to track projects. Some of them have to run concurrently or what we call simultaneously. And the other ones have to finish before the second one or the sequence will follow. So with this, project manager have to be very wary about the Gantt chart or the project schedule to make sure that the project does not overrun its timeline, and also all activities are in place one after the other. So we talk about that and we look at what a Gantt chart is. Today we are continuing with the implementation plan and what is supposed to include in that implementation. What do we need to look at as a project managers or project team? So first of all, we talk about what is a project implementation schedule. And these are, for example, you ask yourself what activities can produce expected project output. You remember we talked about the input, output, and outcome. The input are things that we put in to make sure that we get the end results, which is the output. But for the objective, we have to make sure that we achieve those objectives, and that is the expected outcome. So if the objectives have been met, then we can put the outcome that, for example, if we want to train opinion leaders on accurate information, knowledge about HIV/AIDS, and we conduct a simple instrument by using what we call evaluation form to test their knowledge about HIV/AIDS, and they show high level of information in terms of accuracy of information, then we can say that the objective have been achieved. That is the expected outcome. Then we also look at what is the sequence of these activities. If you look at it, the last time we talked about, for example, over here, activity A and activity B is supposed to run concurrently. But if you look at activity B and C, we need to finish with that of B before we move on to C. This is what we call the sequence or the flow, logical flow of how the project is supposed to be, implemented. So that is what we call the sequence of these activities. Then what is the time frame for these activities? The time frame is what we have as a horizontal bar at the top, where we have the various, timeline that we're supposed. And we said that these timelines vary. Some people can use that of weeks, and some can also use months, some can also use quarterly, depending on the project decision. That can also be done. It doesn't mean that all of them have to be in weeks. I explained to you the last time. Then it's also very important to determine who will be responsible for carrying out each of these activities. If you remember the project scheduling, we put the persons responsible. And we say the persons responsible are the direct people under the project. For example, the project manager, the human resource manager, the finance officer, the M&E officer, the training officer, the logistics officer. All these people are some of the people who are supposed to be responsible for carrying out each of these activities. So with this activity, you need to spell out those people who are supposed to be looking at the project implementation as well. And that is what we call the schedule aspect of it. Now, another important issue that we can also talk about is, for example, the role of the implementing agencies or the agency that is implementing the project. In terms of project implementation plan, that role must be well indicated, okay? And this is where specific responsibilities of the key staff during the project implementation and monitoring are outlined. And once again, these are some of the people I made mention of as, for example, one, the project manager. Apart from the project manager, we also have other logistical support like project logistics manager, project finance and administration. All these monitoring evaluation, they are all part of what we call the project management staff. So it is very important that we get all these things very clearly stated within the project, outline, so that we know. So if anything goes wrong, those people will be held responsible, and they must make sure that they account for whatever happens within the project. Then another aspect of it is where we also have to involve what we call the beneficiaries, or what we call beneficiary involvement. These are people who we call the end user. They are the project will benefit them. And it's very important that in development project management, or within the balance of development communication, we involve the beneficiaries. So in some projects, they have what we call community project beneficiaries. And these are people like opinion leaders. It cut across a segment of the society. Even youth are also part of it. Market women, clergymen, imams, all of them they will have that representative to make sure that everything that goes on within the project, they have that control mechanism. So they also have to be part of this, implementation plan and what is expected out of them. And some of them have some roles expected of them to perform at the grassroots, at the various catchment area or area where the project is being implemented. So it is very important to know that when we are designing projects, we need to involve our beneficiaries into the implementation plan as well.
Question.
So,
I'm just looking at a situation where the beneficiaries, so you are involving them, and then what they want is in contrast with what the donor agency wants. For instance, the beneficiaries want, the project is about providing potable water for a community. The beneficiaries are expecting you to give them pipe-borne water, but the donor expects you to give them borehole water. So then the beneficiaries will be problematic here.
Okay, it's a very good question. So from the word go, from the inception of the project, when I say inception of the project, before even the project is put into execution, it is very important that we involve all the segments, all the people involved. So there is a need of that conscientization. What do we mean by conscientization? To involve the people to understand that this is what the beneficiaries are supposed to be doing. And it is also very important to know that in dealing with a community or what we call development communication, it is very, very important to involve every stakeholder in it for the agreement, for that conscientization, for that awareness, so that the people will decide. That is what we call the bottom-up approach of projects, implementation, and it's even its inception. These people, the project belongs to them. For that matter, they have a say. So that is where the dialogue is very, very important. They need to dialogue. They need to discuss whatever is needed for them. You raise a very important point. In some situations, the community people have not assented to the project. And instead of they want, a market, then they are putting up a different project for them. That is one of the failures of projects. It means that even though this will be constructed for them, whatever, whether waterborne or pipe-borne water or borehole, it must be well agreed by the people. And that is the essence of development communication practitioners, to involve the stakeholders, to involve the beneficiary into the process. So we assume that everything has been agreed upon and these people are on board. And since they are on board, they are going to be part of the project. So there is no need for any form of argument or any form of discussions that needs to have anything to oppose the project. So this one, we assume that everything have been grounded and they are part of it. So what you are talking about is when it comes to the inception of the project, the development of the project, when they don't actually buy into that particular moment, then there will be a problem.
Hello, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, with not concerned.
Yeah.
I think I'm of the view that mostly the private sector or a non-for-profit organization will never encounter this, because definitely they will do a baseline survey. But mostly these problems normally happens with, maybe let's take it, government institutions, where you will just be there or at the planning department. They will formulate the project, and then they will just come and do the phase consultation that, okay, we wanted to bring this to the community, and then before you realize, physical infrastructure is being erected. Normally it happens, but a private organization or an NGO, a not-for-profit making organization, will try to do a baseline survey, and the baseline survey will inform them what to include in the project proposal.
Yes.
In order to make sure that the funding for that particular project is achieved.
Okay. Yeah, you are right. And you raise a very important point. In fact, that is why you've been trained as development communication experts or officers. Your role is to be intermediary between the community people or the beneficiaries and the implementing agencies. You are supposed to bring their voices within the project and also take the voices of what? The donor community or the implementation team into them. So you are playing a liaison type of role. And that is the essence why World Bank, United Nations are calling for this type of people to be trained into the context. So as I've said, we assume that everything is in place. The people are bought into the project. Even the development of this project, the people have to decide what they want. That is why we use, I told you, we use what we call participatory rural appraisal type of what? Methods to determine what the people need within the community. Is that point clear? Goldman.
Yes, Doc.
Okay. So is there any more questions or we should boss on?
There's question, Doc.
Okay, go ahead.
On the beneficiary participation, is it necessary when you are developing your project proposal, is it necessary to explain the roles that each beneficiary, let me use the, or you just list the beneficiary?
No, even from the inception, they have to be part of it. Some people put them under committees, and they can be like an advisory committee to the project management team or the project team. Their role, their voices are very important in this context. Not only when you are ready for the inception of the project. From day one, you need to get their voices heard.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. And as I've said, some of you will find this job at the end of your program. You can be hired by any of the international agencies or even local district to be like a development communication person. And these are your roles, development communication, because you are communicating the development aspects of the project, the involvement and their participation to the people. Good. So if everything is well explained, let's move on. There is another important aspect that we need to talk about, which we talk about organizational structure and staffing. The organogram must be made very clear to the project team and also the beneficiaries. That is the order of how the project is going to be carried and who is overall boss. So this is where the project director or the project manager or whatever the person's name is the overall boss of the project. And there are other functional, members, people who support the project manager. And I did mention that FNA, that's finance and administration. We have human resource. We have a monitoring, evaluation, training team, logistics. All these elements are part of the project process. So in making sure that the project has its own segment of leadership, we need to put down the project structure for the purposes of the management. Another important aspect is the qualification and skills of the staff. You must be able to have people who have the pre-knowledge of the type of job you are assigning them. so that when they get onto the board, they will not be found wanting. Then the job description and specification for staff must also be given. This is where everybody have to know his or her role within the context of the project. So if you are a project training officer, you should have your job description, and they will specify everything for you. If you are a finance manager and also a finance officer, your role must also be well stated. Every aspect of what a human resource of the project must also be well stated. Then we also have to look at the technical assistance if needed. There are some jobs you might not have in-house experts. For example, if you don't have the capacity in baseline study or what we call formative study, the donor partners can ask you to hire somebody to do it for you. So what is the role of that person? What is the time frame given to that person or group of people or consultant? If that technical assistance is needed, there must be a clear-cut document to spell out when they will start their job and when they will finish, and how they will be paid. How much will be paid from the upfront, and how much will be paid when reports are submitted for the final consultancy to be implemented. So all these things are very needed when it comes to organizational structure and staffing, when it comes to, resource people within the project. Another important aspect of it is also financial management. And this is a very key element within the context of project implementation. Why? The project financial team looks at funds management. How would the funds be managed? What are the allowable and not allowable? And I made mention that there is a document, financial document, that specifies how the money is supposed to be disbursed. And all these things have to be well stated within the context of what? The document. Then we also look at the accounting period. What time are they supposed to give accounts reports? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? All these things must be well stated within the context of the implementation so that everybody will know when the financial reporting mechanism is needed. Then also the financial report and statement. So the finance people have to go to the bank and do the bank reconciliation and make sure that whatever cash, whatever check they've issued are well reconciled and accounts presented for audit purposes. It is very, very important. And looking at the reporting system, you have to determine who will report. Is it the finance director? Is it the finance officer who will be giving the report? At what time was he supposed to do? That is the when. Whom would this report, who would they report to, and when? And the standard designs and reporting format is needed. And some organizations do have what we call templates. They'll give the beneficiaries the template, the project agency template. The donor agencies will give the template to, the various agencies. And there are some projects that we have what we call they sublet. For example, they'll give a project to FHI 365, and they will also now get other local or national NGOs to implement. So if they are reporting to FHI 365, then that means that they also have to make sure they provide reporting templates to the subcontractee so that they'll be able to follow how the project is supposed to be, reported. Another important aspect that when we are implementing project we look out is what we call sustainability. In fact, most projects collapse at the end of each period without any sustainability plan. Sustainability simply means how would you continue to run the project even though the donor community will not be around? If their money exhausted, how would the project be running? That is why it is very important to build in what we call the stakeholders, the community people, the beneficiaries are supposed to be part of the project so that they will be able to find ways and means. For example, let's say they've constructed a borehole and put a mechanized way of pulling the water or drawing the water from the ground. And the donor community will not be there to do the maintenance. How do we levy the people? Do we sell the water by buckets so that the money can be used to maintain the borehole? How do we do that? That is part of the sustainability element that I'm talking about. We need to make sure that we put into the project sustainability. If the donor funding exhausts, the project can still move ahead.
There's a question on sustainability.
Yeah, question.
Yes, sir. Kizito here. Sir,
Kizito, yeah.
The project sustainability, does it also have to do with the reason for which the project was done? For example, if it is not something tangible as you are making reference to in the case of a borehole, but it has to do with changing attitude, an attitudinal change or a behavioral change, if you want to put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach the bit of the sustainability? Is it going to be about, okay, how do we do the project such that even after the end of the implementation of the project, the people will still be doing what we expect of them?
Who can answer that question?
And say I'll attempt it.
Okay, who want to attempt it?
Yeah. Kizito,
I will attempt it.
I think, am I on?
Yeah, you're on. Who is
Yeah.
on? Is it
Alfred.
Goldman? Alfred, okay.
Alfred, yeah. I think with behavioral change, you can look at least two areas. First, you need to look at the local leadership. Train them in such a way that once you've left, they have their own natural leaders, so they will lead the process and make sure that they don't backslide. Then the other one is you can create a new social norm. And once a social norm is created, anyone who goes contrary to the acceptable behavior would then look odd amongst them. In other areas like OD, open defecation, they can even fine you using the new social norms. So I think I'm clear with this.
Yes, exactly. That is why, yeah. Somebody want to contribute?
Yes,
Your name, please.
this is Goodman.
Yeah, Goldman, go
Please,
ahead.
I'm of the view that when you are developing your project and you wanted to look at the sustainability, sustainability starts from the very moment you started to draft your project objectives, and then your output, and then the outcome. That is where you begin to look at how can the project be sustained beyond the project period. So, for instance, if my output is to train, I'm doing something on youth unemployment, and my output is to train. My output is to train 100 at the end of the project. 100 young people must be trained, and at the same time, resource through maybe an established funds. The moment you begin to train, you begin to look at the project sustainability. One of the plans is that if a fund is established and the young people are, so one of your output is that, okay, at the end of the project, a fund must be established. If the fund is established and 100 young people are trained, what it means is that you are sustaining the project. In terms of sustainability, there is a fund that is there for them to assess. In terms of sustainability, the young people have been trained to be able to have or establish their own businesses. So sustainability of the project all depends on how you craft your project objectives, the output, the outcomes, before even the methodology to implement the project. So I think that that particular area, whenever you develop a project proposal, you have to take a critical look at that, because you can get your sustainability plans out of that particular area.
Great. That's it. That's why I'm saying that from the beginning, you don't wait till the project is about to implement before you involve the community membership. Now, development communication calls for a situation whereby you have to bring on people on board from the inception of the project. So when you are building it, you ask yourself, okay, if this funding ends, what to be the way forward? That is the sustainability. How do we keep the project in place without any form of what? Hindrance or any form of what? Project coming to an end, it will still continue in that flow. That is the sustainability aspect we are talking about.
Doc, thank you very much. I actually wanted a confirmation, and of course, I agree with what my colleagues have said. Thank you very much.
Yes. Any other question?
Zainab here.
Yes, Zainab, go ahead.
Okay, so with the example that you gave, like the borehole, selling it by buckets so that you get money to be able to sustain and then repair if there's anything. What if it's a community that you believe they can't even afford to pay maybe 50 pesos per bucket to fetch the water? In a situation like that, what do you do?
Okay, it's a good question. That is a typical poor community. What do we do? All right, this is where the assembly also is. They are one of the main stakeholders of the project.
Sir, can I also make an attempt to help with it?
You want to explain, yeah.
Yes. I had a practical experience where something like this came up. And then the community then decided that, look, even though it's a poor or is quite a poor and needy community, they were basically farmers. So they collect the foodstuff. I mean, they contribute by way of foodstuff. And then they try to sell the foodstuff. And the money they generate out of the foodstuff that each member of the community was, volunteering and bringing, they tend to use that for the maintenance work that needed to be carried out, on the facility. So just to respond to Zainab quickly, I mean, there are always alternatives. There are a lot of varying alternatives, and some of this practical example could also be considered where the community can find a way to give something so that they can raise or generate funds out of it if the money cannot come from them directly. Thank you.
Good. That's another example so what Kizito was trying to explain is that there is another way that we can also create some sort of funds where the people cannot pay that 50. They can bring foodstuffs or any form of support so that they can sell it and use that money and use to maintain either the borehole or whatever facility we have in place. The role of the assembly is also very important because there is some fund we call the Assembly Common Fund where you can also get. So how much are we getting from this fund to support? In fact, there have been instances where some of these boreholes in practical terms have been constructed. And after some time, there is no even money to maintain them. And these machines actually got spoiled and the project is no more in existence. That is not something that we can tout our credentials to say that, yes, we have done. It is a serious indictment on behalf of development communication practitioners because we have to make sure how these projects are sustained by either raising funds or talking to assembly, or even there are some benevolent individuals and organizations that can continue to support by means of maintenance. So if we have that stakeholder membership of the project, we can say that the project can live up to its sustainable aspect of it. And it is very important. In fact, a lot of international NGOs folded up and the project never see any light again. And this does not go well for, development communication practitioners. So it is very important that we factor some of these things when we are developing, new projects. So the contributions, you've given is also in place. We need to look at that when we are implementing some of these projects. Any other?
Sir, what Kizito said, I didn't. What Kizito said, I didn't get him. Sir, this is Omaru.
Omaru.
Yes,
Kizito,
please.
can you come in again?
Yes, sir. Omaru.
Yes, Kizito.
Please try and buy enough data bundle. But in any case,
I can hear you. I can hear you.
What I'm trying to say is that we are looking at alternatives. Zainab asked the question of when it's clear that the community cannot even pay as much as 50%.
Okay.
What I was suggesting is that I've had a chance where I enter a community and there was a facility, a project that was done. What the community members sought to do, or I'm sure the project implementers, what they sought to do was that they looked at how to raise money, how to generate money to cater for a facility. So in this case, where the people cannot provide the physical cash, the people are farmers. If you go to your farm and you come, you can decide to say, bring a tuber of yam or donate a tuber of yam or plantain or any other thing they were farming. Now they will then sell it. Those that the community had appointed to handle the thing will then sell it, and the money they generate out of the food sale, they use it to cater for the facility. Do you get the point?
I get it.
I was just trying to say there are always alternatives. The people cannot directly provide fiscal cash.
Wow, very brilliant. Thank you.
It's not brilliant. Yeah.
Any other contribution?
Yes, sir. Hello?
Yeah, who is on floor, please?
Yeah, sir, please, this is Sophia.
If you go ahead.
Yes, sir, please. So I realized that so far, what stands out really for me is the fact that there's always stakeholders involvement, because in Kizito's reference, for instance, these people couldn't pay for the services being provided. And if you go down, you realize that perhaps they had a dialogue with them and asked them what ways they themselves they can suggest. And then out of that, they were able to come out of with this alternative. So the basics is that as project people, we should be able to indulge the people, like have the ideas. You'll be surprised that they themselves, they seemed like they didn't know what to do about the matter. But the moment you start engaging them, they'll start coming up with brilliant ideas that you yourself, you wouldn't have even thought of. So we should be able to engage the stakeholders themselves, and they'll be able to come out with what solutions they themselves can provide to help in sustainability processes.
Exactly, and this is what we call the bottom-up approach.
If I miss you.
Yeah. So it's coming from the people themselves. That is why your role is very important, development communication especially, because gone are the days when we have those theories of development communication where people feel that, when the thing happens to the top, it will trickle down to the people at the grassroots. No, as if the people at the grassroots don't have indigenous knowledge. They do. They are more even because they have been dealing with their issues for quite time immemorial. So they have solutions. So we cannot bypass them and then go and be talking to them as if they don't have anything. We are the people who have solutions to your problems. That's all we are looking at. Good. So let's move on. So it's also very important that when we are running projects, we should not exhaust the available resources like raw materials and labor. And also, project must be able to make some resources available. Not every money. If we make savings, that savings should go into a place where we can keep it for sustainability so that subsequent era we can use it for the project. Now, we have another element, what we call time control and remedial action within the project implementation. And this is where supervisors must take some of these things into consideration. One, time control measures. How are they controlling time? In fact, time is one of the important elements in project implementation. There are projects that have overrun in terms of what? Time. So if you look at the budget line, you realize that as at the time they approve the budget, it has taken a longer time to that project to be implemented. Let's take, for example, the Tete Kwashi interchange. That project was approved during Rawlings era. Kufuor came in, and if you realize they started the project and it halted and they have to come in again, they were saying that politicians, you know them with their game ball, that this person overpriced the project. I mean, they have to modify the project, and the whole thing came out. So when the project was constructed, it didn't even mean the criteria of the people. You realize there was a heavy traffic flow from sprinters. That made the late Professor Evans Atamils have to come out with another remedial to construct some access road here and there to make it, workable. So the project itself have actually outlived its time. Not only that, a lot of projects that we have in Ghana have actually outlived its existence because of time element. So time control is very, very important. That is why it is very important to put in place that Gantt chart that we look at that the last time, the time scheduling. What aspect of it when do we have to end one particular end and start with the other activity? What do we need in terms of its completion? What time do we need to complete that project so that there will not be what we call time overrun in terms of project? So time scheduling is very important. Time extension and postponement, if there is a need for us to postpone any aspect of the project, we need to also look at its extension period. We shouldn't make it so, extensive that it will take the whole aspect of the period. Then damages for non-completion. In some projects, they put that there as a clause that if you're not able to finish your project within time, they will award you some penalty if you don't have justifiable reason. Some of them, they call for government mobilization. That means government have to give them money. And projects are in phases. So when they finish with another phase, they need to get their money spent on what actually went into the previous. And all these things are part of the control and the remedial action. Then how about issues whereby they are defect or warranty period? At times we buy equipment, especially computers, with vehicles and other things, it has its own warranty. So as a project manager and his team, you have to be very wary about what time do you have in terms of the duration of that particular equipment. If that equipment is, faulty, do we have warranty to be able to, repair it or even replace it? That is why vehicles, projects like to go in for what we call a comprehensive coverage, where if anything happens like accidents, they will be able to give you a new vehicle straightforward, because there will not be any time to be looking for repairs and other things. And I work on one project, USAID, one of our vehicles was involved in accident. And because of the warranty, they have to give us a new vehicle. So don't cut corners by going for third-party type of insurance or warranty. You need to seek for warranty if you are buying equipment. So these are the logistics people are aware of this. They will go in for, items that they can get the warranty. And the period is also very important. You make sure that you adhere to the period. You can have a warranty, but when the period elapses, it will not go under that same agreement again. So all these things you as a project manager or project team have to be wary of. Then when it comes also to project implementation schedule and supervision, this includes set of checks and balances to ensure that the time schedule is being adhered to. When I say checks and balances, what do you do in terms of if there is any delay with any of your project activities? What mechanism, what remedial measures have you put in place to make sure that you provide the end results? If there's going to be a delay, what do you do? Do you shift some of the activities that's supposed to move on to make sure that you don't waste too much time with regards to that activity? So all these things need a lot of creativity. And if you have worked on a project before, some of these things will be very handy for you. That is why when they are looking for project officers, they are looking for project manager, they look for experience. Because some of these things will come, but how would you be able to resolve the issues immediately? Those are some of the things that we are talking about here. Now, in terms of approaches to project implementation, we made mention of one, the top-down approach, which is the most commonest approach that a lot of people do, because some people feel that they have the money and they can decide what the people want. So implementation is mainly done by agencies from outside the community. And when they come like that, they detect how they should be done. And this time they only involve very little involvement of the beneficiaries or the stakeholders within the community. And it doesn't augur well for project implementation. In fact, it's because of some of these top-down approach that they brought in communication or development communication practitioners to do what we call the bottom-up approach. Here, the beneficiaries implement the project, and outside agencies may provide the financial resources and technical assistance, okay? And these involve what we call the collaborative participatory approach. And this is where all the segments of the stakeholders are needed. And they all must be part of the game board so that they provide that needed support that we need for the project. Then both top-down and bottom-up approach to project implementation are applied in the process. Yes, some of them, the projects will involve, top-down, but the bottom-up approach in terms of the community involvement are also blended into it so that it can augur well for whatever projects have been designed and is supposed to be implemented as well.
A question on this one.
Question.
Yes, on the approaches.
Yeah.
Yes, even though I understand the bottom-up approach and the top-down approach, but are there instances where it's more ideal to use only top-down? I mean, one of the approaches.
It's happening. For example, if the government decide that we are going to construct roads and they provided bidding for all the feeder roads in the country to be tarred, it's a typical top-down approach. It's not initiated by the people, even though the people have that concern that the road should be constructed. They've not involved too much of, they just need, it's a necessity. It's done. Government projects, most of them are top-down approach. Development projects, some of them are bottom-up, some of them are also a top-down approach type of implementation. Is that clear?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, let's move on to another important area in project implementation, what we call the human resource management. Project human resource management include the processes that organize, manage, lead the project. So first of all, how do we get the people, the organization aspect of it? How do we manage the project team? And if you want to talk about the project human resource management, it's a very broad area. The welfare of the staff is very, very important. The well-being of your staff. That is why when you are giving them packages, you give them health insurance, you make sure that when they themselves and their immediate family members are sick, they can be catered for, okay? It's also very important that you remunerate them from other allowances. For example, if they are going to the field, they need to have their per diem. Recently, some of you work on national, identification project. And you have something we call, field allowances. This is being organized by the Human Resource Unit, okay? So the Human Resource Management make sure that they organize and manage and lead the project team. They provide that leadership. And when we talk of the project team, it's comprised of people with assigned roles and responsibility for completing that particular project, okay? And the type and number of project team members can change frequently as the project progresses, depending on the needs of the project. It can change as we go along. And the type of human resource that we need, the functions include the recruitment of the people. That is why when they are looking for project, they are the people who organize the interview and shortlist people for the job. And also provide what we call some capacity building training for them. Make sure that they appraise them periodically, their performance. And some projects, salary increment beholds on appraisal system. If they feel that your performance is not, satisfying, they will give you a letter to beef up your game. And if you are not able to beef up or you're not able to improve upon your performance, they can relieve you of that responsibility. They are also supposed to motivate team, either intrinsic or extrinsic, in the sense of internal or external way of motivation, okay? Even calling the staff thereby to praise a staff for good job done, even is another way of intrinsic method. It's not monetary. It is a motivational aspect of it, okay? And ensuring that the workplace communication flow, the safety, the workplace safety is also very important. That is why when there is a corona outbreak, they have to lock down a lot of projects, because the well-being of the people. You remember a classical example. There is these people, these Chinese and Ghanaians working on the railway line around, Esojaman district. I remember one time I was traveling on that road. In the night, they were still working. Even that time is when they were talking about people should be very careful about social distances and all those things. They were still working. So it wasn't a surprise to me at all when I heard that, they were cited for, high cases of,
The
corona,
COVID.
the COVID. This is a classical example because the welfare, the safety of the staff have not been taken into consideration. And in fact, there have been instances where our own, Ghanaian staff working for expatriates, they don't treat them very well at all. They treat them anyhow, and that does not augur well for staff safety and other related issues that, we are talking about. So it is very important that, we take note of some of these things and make sure they don't harm the welfare of the staff and others, okay? Then early involvement and participation of...
Hello,
Doug.
Hello, Doug.
Go ahead.
Hello, Doug.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with the safety of the workers and in terms of motivation, yes, the example that you cited, they are not being motivated very well. It's something that we are battling with. But in terms of the coronavirus, it was new expatriates 6 that came into the country. 6 expatriates. They are not even. They immediately came into the country on the 15th of March. The workers themselves gave the alarm they alerted the authorities and they were quarantined the following day. They were isolated and quarantined the following day. But in terms of motivation, we know that as for the Indians, we have a problem with them. They don't motivate staff. Yes, you may pass that they are working throughout the night to meet the project timelines. But in terms of motivation, it's something that is very
Go ahead.
It's very poor, but there is that must be done. They don't have the expertise in this country, so they have to bring in 6 people. That 6 people were the people who brought the disease into the country. So thank God the local workers were able to alert the health authorities, and quickly they quarantine. Like the whole of the district would have been in a mess. So it's not the old workers or old expatriates in the country who have spread the disease. It's the new people, 6 new.
Yeah. So all fall within the context of what I'm trying to talk about. So the human resource should have quarantined these people. That human resource unit must be able to determine that no, these people going to the community will jeopardize even the other staff and also the community. And they didn't take it serious at all. And these are a classical example of what we talk about, safety at the workplaces. Any other question or contribution? Okay, so let's move on. So we also said that early involvement and participation of team members add their expertise during the planning process and strengthen their commitment to the project. That is why some organizations would like to start with the people from the beginning, from the inception. They will not work out everything before they bring them on board. So it is very important that any involvement and participation of the team members or the human resource team on the project is very, very key in this area. And making most effective use of the people involved in the project is also very, very important. That is the human resource or the project team. Now, looking at it, what is the human resource management? It's to plan human resource management, the process of identifying and documenting project roles, responsibilities, and required skills, reporting, relationship, and creating staffing management plan. So that is the role of the HOD, the human resource management. So what is their role in terms of what? Identify and documenting project roles. So when you get your job description, it will come from the human resource unit, your responsibilities, your, what we call your benefits, and also the required skills that they are looking for will have to be carved by a human resource unit, and also the reporting relationship and creating that synergy in terms of the plan is very, very important. Then in terms of acquiring project team, it is a process of confirming human resource availability and obtaining the team necessary to complete the project assignment. So it's a role of the human resource to manage who is needed for which aspect of the project. What time do we need a person? What qualification do the person need? And what is the remuneration as well? And this is where some human resource team go and poach people and pay them well because they feel that those people or that particular person will perform very well on the project. So that is another aspect of what, that's what we call the hiring aspect or acquiring the project team. Now, another element is where they have to develop the project team. And it's a process of improving the competencies, team interaction, and the overall team environment to enhance project performance. So when we talk of the development aspect of it, it is a role of the human resource to organize some sort of what, orientation, training, for the project team, no matter how experienced these people are, the people that you are hiring. It will be very important to bring them on board to understand the dynamics of the project in which they are coming to work on. And in that process, they have to train them. They also have to let them know the understanding about the communication flow or the interaction and the overall, the work environment and how they have to enhance their performance. Because if that synergy is not there, the performance can go low. The job satisfaction can also go disarray. So this is another aspect of the human resource management. In talking about managing the project team, the process of tracking team members' performance, each member's performance, if key performance indicators are given to the staff, if reporting mechanisms are given, then the team is able to track and make sure that they perform and provide the necessary feedback to these people. And also resolving issues and managing changes to optimize project performance is also key over here. So it is very important that we provide all these necessary, feedback to those who are working on that. So it's managing the project team and making sure giving feedback and taking care of their health. If a member is not feeling well, you as a project manager and also the human resource team must be able to go and let them know that this person is not feeling well. Let the doctor test this person and provide, because the more this person is healthy, the performance will be high. If that person is not performing and the person is sick, then you cannot blame the person. So the mental, the health, well-being of the people are all needed at the same time. So all these things are elements of what? Managing the team. Any question?
Sir.
Yeah.
This is Umaru.
Go ahead, Umaru.
Sir, please, can you go back small, if you didn't mind? The plan human resource management.
Mm-hmm.
So all the points acquired develop management, are they under them or they stand on their own?
Are they under what?
Under the plan human resource management.
No. When we say plan, you see the first one is plan, the second one is acquired, the third one is developed, the fourth one is managed. So what we are saying over here is that the human resource management will plan.
Okay.
Then they will acquire, that's the hiring, and they will develop the team and manage the team as well.
Okay.
So plan, acquire, develop, manage is a key role of a human resource management.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Why is it that there's nothing welfare in all of this, the roles of the HR?
Oh, we talk about the welfare. If you are managing your project, the welfare is very key over here. You remember we talked about welfare in the previous one.
Okay, so that's to be taken for granted.
Exactly,
okay.
The project team.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Okay, right.
It's a key element. That's why you remember I talked about if somebody is not feeling well, you the human resource person, even the mental well-being. Some people psychologically, when they get to work, because of problem they are having at home, they will not be able to perform very well. So you need to find out from that person, what is your problem? Why are you not performing well? Is it welfare? Okay, you go to see a psychologist. Let's provide a counseling to this person. Let this person go and do extra tests so that we know what is wrong with that person. These are all welfare issues. Okay, let's move on. So this is a summary of a human resource management process. So you look at the planning is the process of plan human resource management. This is where the output is you need to come out with a human resource plan. There is a human resource plan, and those are the things I just summarized that you have to plan, you have to acquire, you have to develop, you have to manage, and you have to also take care of the other necessary aspects of your staff and their family members as well. Then in terms of executing, the process there is to acquire project team. The output is project staff assignment, resource calendars, project management plan updates are well provided. Then when it comes to develop project team performance assessment, enterprise environmental factors updates, and also making sure that you build the capacity of your team members in terms of training. Some of them will have to go outside the country for extra training. Some of them have to go to, if they have an international organization, the development partners will let them go into their, international bodies for extra training. Then there is also another aspect about monitoring and controlling. This is where you have to manage the project team. You have to change requests, project management plan updates, project document updates, enterprise environmental factors update, and organizational process access update. All these things are part of the human resource. If you look at the last one, organizational process access update, these are all equipment that fall within the organization. How are you keeping update of them? The inventory system have to be in place. You also have to be updating your staff on some of these things. Is that you are monitoring and controlling that mechanism as a human resource. In terms of where you have project management plan updates, if there's any form of update, you have to communicate it to the members. And if it is done by the leadership, that information must reach other, followers as well. So all these things, and also looking at the environmental factors. What are the environmental issues going on? Either internal, external, okay? What are some of the government policies that we need to look at when it comes to safety in terms of what? Paying tax, compliance, and any that related issues that affect the activities or the well-being of the staff. It is very, very important. So you realize that you start from the beginning as a project to the end. All these things have to be in place. And it's a continuous process, especially the monitoring and the controlling mechanism. You need to continue to monitor. Now, let's look at some of the controlling costs. To execute project within the budget and to focus on attention on potential costs, it's very important to know that the problem in time and also corrective or the cost minimizing actions needs to be taken into consideration. And you don't spend all the money because they say spend 100,000 on training, then you spend all the money on training. There must be that aspect of cost controlling mechanism and also minimizing some of the actions, okay? Then should you formulate specific procedures to reviewing and approving changes in the project, that also needs to be done. What procedures? That is why before you even start everything, there must be policy and procedure document. If you want to call for money, you want to buy anything, what do? The processes must be well laid down so that you, who is the head of monitoring evaluation, if you need a computer, you need to follow that process. You need to follow on the human resource or the finance people to find out what needs to be done at a particular time. Then proposed changes must be studied carefully considering its implications, cost, schedule, and expected project benefits. It's also very important to know that whilst you are putting all these things in place, it is very important that you look out for its implication, any action that you are going to do. you need to look at its implication. What is the cost element? What is the schedule in terms of time? And what needs to be done to benefit the project? So as a project manager, you must be able to continue to do what? To monitor the progress of project activities. You need to review the plan, design of the project at various stages. You also must make extensive use of project controlling and accounting system. There are a lot of softwares now. Topaz is a classical example. QuickBooks. If you are working for, especially United States of America project like USAID project, all of you be taking through some of these software. They are means of what? Ensuring accountability. They are means of ensuring cost controlling mechanism, transparency and everything. You'll be taken through. So whatever is happening is key into the system and everybody have access to what, is going on, all right? Then you also must make efforts to measure progress and performance. In every aspect of the project, there is what we call key performance indicator. So how are you checking key performance indicator? In terms of what? The financial aspect of it. In terms of what? The cost element. How are you tracking equipment and material? That is now vehicles they put in a tracking mechanism because some drivers play games. They said they pick a car, they are going to Abokobi. By the time they realize they are in Nkoko. So these mechanisms must be in place to track all equipment. Laptops can also be tracked wherever they are. Who is using it? Under what circumstances are they using it? It's the tracking mechanism that needs to be. There are now softwares that track all these things in place. And you have to closely monitor the cost of the project. And in doing all this, you need to prepare project progress reports periodically. In terms of the controlling the cost element, you, the finance person, you must be able to give an overview of how much has been allocated and how much have we spent so far, and how much do we need to spend for other aspects of the project. All these things must be well detailed, okay, to identify and address problems that will be encountered on the project. Now, I want to pause here before we move on to some of the factors that can affect project implementation. Any question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. Is that
So you said, yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
So you said as a project manager, you need to closely monitor the cost.
Of course.
So I'm wondering in my head which indicators, how you are going to monitor. Is it, if you can tell me how you are going to monitor, I'll be grateful.
Let me take you back to the Gantt chart. You see these activities over here line up?
Yes, please.
You, the project manager, must know how much involved in each aspect of the project. How much has been spent on those that are completed? Those that are going to be completed, how much do you have to put in it? That is the cost element. Then the monitoring and evaluation people will also give you a whole rundown on what is going on in the project activities.
Okay.
The training people will also give you reports. So you as a master manager of the project, you are monitoring every aspect of it. So this alone will give you that control. That is why we produce this to give us what has actually entered into the project, the input, okay, the output, the outcome. Are we achieving expected outcome as specified by the objectives? All these things have to be well streamlined.
Okay.
Yeah. Any question?
Yeah, Doc, I think I'd like to ask a question about the sustainability.
Okay.
And usually, in your experience, and I tend to agree with Goldman when he said it has to be part of the conception. But assuming that the beneficiaries agreed to, let's say, to use Kizito's example, sell off their farm produce to support. In your experience, are you allowed to have a fallback position by the time maybe 2 years down the line, if the project is folding up and you wanted the sustainability to kick in and there's a shift, what do you do? Do you build, for instance, you mentioned what is it? Common fund. I think the district common fund something.
Assembly common fund.
Assembly common fund. In conceiving the project, could that be like a fallback position, or you just agree with beneficiaries irrespective of the fact that they may shift to one side or the other by the end of the project?
Okay, they are all options available. They are alternatives. Okay, and it depends on project to project. There are instances where I work on projects, and what happened was that the money allocated, there have been some savings. So the project ran for another year, okay, with staff members taking half of the salary, and also project implementation cost is also taking part of the money. It's another way of it sustainable. It means that the project manager was able to cut down costs, not at the detriment of the project, but in a more creative manner. So here, instead of having residential workshops, they had what we call, community type of workshop where the beneficiaries are coming from community. So there's no need. So they cut down costs in accommodation. They also cut down costs in allowances for like taking care of, their dinner and all those things, because the people are coming from community. They go back and take, food in their various homes. It's part of it. In some situations, they have to fall on the project donors to call for extra money for continuation of the project. And some of them, the project donors were satisfied. They were satisfied with the work that they've done so far. So they decided to pop in some extra money. Some, the assembly or the Ministry of Education took up the project and embedded it into their mainstream activities. Okay. And I've told you the last, I don't know whether, in the normal face-to-face lectures that even the way the equipment are supposed to be used are streamlined in the project document, known as the project charter. Most, Government of Ghana projects, even when they are international NGO coming to support individual organizations, they make sure that they lay out clearly how the equipment or vehicles, equipment are supposed to be channeled. Some of them go to the ministries and appeal the project from. There was a project called PACIPE. This project, what happened was that after they finished the project, the equipment is environmental project. Everything went to Ministry of Environment. And environment took over. So the chief director took inventory of everything and pushed the project under its domain. Okay. And this does not sit very well with some of the, implementing agencies, because they feel that when you go to the government chairs, they will misuse all this equipment. But that is how the donor communities want their money to be used and how they want to channel it. So it's a mixed approach whereby there is this type of individual, sponsorship. There is issue where community people have to come in to make sure that they contribute something token for the project implementation. All these things are available for whatever people are running the project. So we can look at it as an entity. We can fall back on some of these things. Some of them can be also savings from the projects that have been run. And I've told you I work on several projects, and the key is how you cut down costs. Some also added what we call the cost sharing element. They are mixed methodology with regards to sustainability.
Great. Thanks very much, sir.
You're welcome. Now, let's look at some of the factors that can affect project implementation. Political commitment is a key element. What do we mean by political commitment? It's either on the macro level or at the micro level. When we talk of political commitment, government in power rule is very important. Let me give you one classical example of just ended project that I serve as a consultant. It's for a learning project where then government NDC were trying to use Ghanaian languages at primary 1 to 6 as a means of instruction. When NPP came in fact, under that project, USAID sponsored a project called Learning. And the learning project involved using about 26 Ghanaian local languages. And they developed materials using the local languages from Dagbani, Ewe, Kusasi, down to other typical languages, Dangbe and among others. When NPP government came into being, they also have their political manifesto. To them, the means of instruction should be combination of English language and Ghanaian languages. So what happened was that they were not interested in the continuation of the project. So it affects the implementation of what? So what we have to do is to do some sort of what? Immediate adjustment. So I was in charge of the e-learning component of the project because we're training teachers to use, the certain learning centers. We created about 22 learning centers all over the country. And teachers are supposed to go there for their capacity to be built. So the government picked up that project and even expanded that aspect of it, but they were not interested in the local language aspect of it. So this became another classical example of political commitment. They are not committed to the local languages. So the project truncated. As I'm talking to you, that project has ended and the materials have been handed over to Ministry of Education. The centers is one of them that Ghana government is using. Plan Ghana came in to purchase it from another organization called Vaki Foundation. And that is what they are using for the learning project now that they are transmitting, okay, live to junior high school and senior high school students. So this is a classical example of what we call political commitment. Project after project have been faced with political commitment. If one government is not interested in another particular project, the project will go down. Look at the e-classroom that was created by the then President Mahama. NPP don't buy into that type of what, expanding the infrastructure. So some of these projects are still in that stage. is political commitment. Okay, so political commitment at the national level can affect a lot of what project. I don't know whether I've told you also that when it comes to certain projects, internationally, it becomes a geopolitics. And I made mention that if Democrats are in power, a lot of NGOs in Ghana get money to do sexually reproductive health projects. Contraceptive sales go high, and also a lot of NGOs come back to business because Democrats believe in what? Choices of life, whereby the conservatives, which are the Republicans, believe in pro-life. So there will not be any way that Donald Trump will give money for contraceptive usage. But when there is any Democrat government, it will affect, a lot of NGOs. So Planned Parenthood Association of Ghana, UNFPA, among others, will get money to do a lot of activities. It's part of political commitment at the international level. This things happen, okay? So it is very important that you should note that political commitment at the national level, international level affects project implementation. So some projects will start, but as soon as a government came in, they have to truncate the project. It's a classical example of what I'm talking about. Simplicity of design of projects is also another issue. Some projects don't have that rigor. For that matter, it affects its implementation. Projects must start from the inception. By the development stage, have to go through different levels. And if we don't build into the system some of this, a very robust way of designing a project, and we just design it very simple, its implementation with regards to monitoring and evaluation in terms of key performance indicators will suffer. So project planning must go through what we call rigorous process, and project team must involve themselves within the context. Another aspect of factors that can affect project implementation is bad management practices. When you have a project manager, instead of going according to the laid down procedures, policies, that person chooses to truncate the process. If corruption sets in, when people who are supposed to do the real work, they don't give it to them, like consultants or vendors, and they give it to people without following the due process, the project sponsors or development partners can put hold onto the project, and it can affect the project implementation. Another classical example is also lack of involvement of beneficiaries or the communities involved. It is very important to know that communities play a key role. And we talked about this some few minutes ago about how it's important to involve the beneficiary or communities in it because of its sustainability. So it is very important that, if you don't involve the people, it can affect project implementation. In fact, there have been instances whereby the chiefs in the communities have not been consulted. There wasn't any proper community mobilization. And it's time for project implementation, and the chief said, no, we cannot accede to this project. We are not interested in this project, and affect the project implementation. So classical point over here is that we need to involve the beneficiaries or the communities. Financial problems. This financial problem cut across a lot of segments. Either the project is having fund running. In some situations, the donor communities must put in place a way that the money can be called for periodically And even though the implementing agencies follow this system, they also have problems in terms of what? Financial. And this can come in if another government in power in their country comes into place and feel that that project is not their priority. There can be that financial problem. Another financial problem is also that you are overrunning the project when it comes to finance. There is no prudent management when it comes to, financial control. So that is why as a project manager, you have to be able to have control over what? The project disbursement. And also making sure that the project follow according to its schedule. And also not taking loose of the time schedule. Then technical problems. There are some situations whereby there are a lot of technical issues affecting the project. Probably the baseline study did not follow the plan that is supposed to be. So after the project the baseline have been done, you realize that it didn't follow what the project is intended according to the development partners. Key elements have been overlooked. It can be a technical problem. Technical problem can also mean that whilst you are planning a construction project, you do not factor in people with disability. So there wasn't any disabled people, pathway for them to be able to use their wheelchairs or even their crutches to go through. And this has been some of the challenges a lot of projects had in Ghana after we had the Disability Act. It can also mean, technical problem. Then political problems. That one, they are very numerous. You realize that projects have started, and when a government comes in, they stop. Politically. They feel that if you have that money, you use it to go and finance your political party. So intentionally, they will still use money. You can't even get money to run. So if you realize a lot of people have worked on government projects, contractors, and they've not been paid. And this actually delayed a lot of projects. And it created many, many challenges for the contractors. They also went to bank to seek for loan to mobilize to start a project. They were looking for funds to pay this bank, and they are not be able to get some of this money. So political problems cut across in their diverse ways. That can also be another means of project delay. Now, what are some of the typical implementation problems when it comes to project? The one we look at is more or less like a macro level type. Yeah.
I would want to ask you, looking at the factors that can affect project implementation, can we see pandemics, looking at the situation that we find ourselves now globally?
No two ways about that.
A number of projects now would have to come to halt. They are unable to undertake their activities, their food activities, and they resort to do certain things that they can only do in-house.
Yes. It's a classical example of what we are talking about. It can also affect the COVID-19. It's going to affect a lot of projects in terms of time running, in terms of what? Personnel working on the projects. Okay, even in America, developed well, a lot of people working on projects have lost their jobs. Unemployment rate is so massive. And people are applying for unemployment condition. All right. So in fact, COVID-19 have actually, it's like a third world war that affected the whole global world. So no two ways about that.
So, hello, sir.
Yes.
This is Omaro. Just a follow-up to my colleague Charles. So in this case, we can say that one of the factors that can affect project implementation is natural factors or natural disasters or force majeure?
Yeah, force majeure. Remember, we talked about that under the known unknown. There are certain conditions that will be able to affect our implementation. And some of them is not for our own means, a force majeure. Okay? It's a natural occurrence. Like, even though people are saying that COVID-19 is not a natural phenomenon, it's a human being creation. That is another theories that will unfold as you go along. As you are aware, United States of America is investigating China, Wuhan lab.
Yes.
They were the people who created this, notorious, virus that have actually wiped over so many thousands of people. And we are all having effects. It's having effects on us as of now. Okay. So the points that you raised also come in natural calamities. We'll talk about that. So now, typical implementation problems. Let me check something. We have 2 more slides to go. Do we finish or then we know that we are done with implementation? Let me get your consensus, or you are tired?
So we are tired, but since it's left with 2 slides, let's finish.
Okay.
Fatigue has set in, if you want to finish the last 2.
So fatigue have set in, eh?
Yeah, we are tired.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
All right. Then what we'll do here is that I'll stop over here. The next time we meet, that's next week, Saturday, I will talk about it. But let me give you this information. I received, directives on how to go about assessment. That is why I was a bit hesitant to send the project work. And I'm thinking of converting that into individual assignments on how you can go about the project. It will serve as a final exam for you, but it's going to be like, open book sort of. When I say open book, you can open your books to refer, but the question will not be direct. It's going to be applied type of questions. Apply in the sense that I can give you a scenario and I'll ask you as a project manager, what do you do in that situation? Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to do that, and I'm looking at the mid-semester exams, whether it will still be a project work or it's still going to be like, the normal sort of questions and answers type of. But that one, we have to proto it. Proto it means that I'll open the platform, and then they are designing a Moodle platform for you. The system will open, and at a particular time, then it will close within a period of time. But plagiarism will be checked so that nobody will send a question answers to a colleague and the colleague will recycle that particular assignment. That will be done, also as an alternative. These are some of the 2 alternatives that I have that I want to discuss with you. If you are okay with me, I like dialoguing with my students so that they know what type of assessment they will have. What are your thoughts? Briefly, 5 minutes, then we close.
Okay, I think the online one will be a bit of worry. Looking at the fact that a lot of our colleagues are unable to even join the normal lecture classes online. So it will be a bit of a worry. Maybe we can look at the other alternative.
This is Omaro.
Omaro.
Just follow up to my brother Charles. I suggest we do 10 paper for the midterm. Take home assignment, then You give us a deadline, then we submit through your email or any place.
So you need a 10 paper?
Yes, please.
Is that a consensus? I can give you 10 paper for the MISEM.
No, that's not the consensus. That's Umaru's opinion.
It looks like
Is it take home assignment or 10 paper?
10 paper, take home assignment, they are all the same. It's just a... See, somebody wanted to...
Yeah, please. If it doesn't fair.
What happens to our groups?
Oh, please, the group won't work.
Because of the situation.
The group won't work. The group won't work in this situation.
Because of the situation.
Yes, group won't work. Won't work.
We can still have a group presentation on this platform.
It had to be difficult, just like
please, it will help.
How will it be difficult?
Some of us are having challenges with our internet, and sometimes we find it difficult to even join normal lecture. So to do this thing, it will be extremely difficult for me. I'm speaking for myself.
I think it should be individual. I think the group dynamics can be very problematic sometimes.
Yes, individual.
Yes.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Kabunati.
Kabu, go ahead.
Yes, Doc. This is very important, and I tend to side with some of the submissions from my colleagues that let's look at how every individual will have access, and it seems that data and then online presence is becoming a problem. So, for this sake, I suggest that we have the take-home thing. As to whether the groups would be effective or not, I think it's pretty obvious. If you really want to assess this individually, and that's what the school is saying, because I'm sure that your idea too would have to fit into the school's idea. In any case, I'm sure it's going to be a universal thing. So if they insist that we have individual based on the module they are having for all universities, then we can have the individual. If the group too is allowed based on their policy they're going to come out with or they've interacted with you on, then we go that way. But I think one thing is clear, that so everyone has access to that, then we should have the take-home thing. Then we get to submit at the appropriate time. That's my little contribution to hear from the other side.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please, this is Martin. I just wanted to, because of this online class and because of how your lecture notes are presented, please, is it possible you can help us know all the topics you've treated so far so that we can be on the same page?
Have you been having access to the lectures online?
Yes, but because we go into the Google...
everything in the slide is what I'm covering. Now we are on the implementation.
Everything on the slide is what... Okay, very well.
It's there. Everything is there.
Yes, I just wanted to keep track. I didn't know if everything is
and
there.
The notes, everything, the textbooks are provided, are all there online for you. Google Drive.
Okay, very well.
Yeah.
Very well, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to confer with the graduate school and see whether the platform where you are going to present your work is ready. And then they are creating a Moodle platform for you. Even that one, they need to take you through on how the Moodle platform works. I can showcase a Moodle platform to you if it's ready and make sure that you have access. But because that is where you are going to submit your assignment, okay, or 10 paper or take home assignment that I'm going to give you. So I will give you the assignment as soon as I get the approval from the graduate school authorities.
Thank you very much.
Because they ask us to submit our final exams. That will be the end of term exams. That will be different from the assignment that I'll give you and you go. It's going to be individualism. Are you okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I want to thank you very much for the class. For those who couldn't participate, please, you need to have a Zoom account. That's the email address and the password. You need to have that one standby. If in case they prompt you, because some of you change your devices. Those of you who enter, you realize that the link that I provided, you click on it and you enter. No hitches at all. So in case you have hitches next time, make sure you keep your Zoom account, which is the email address and the password, and you can use it to enter into the room so that there will not be hitches at all. All right. Apology to those who couldn't make it, but the participation was very high. As at the time I'm ending now, about 47 of you are online, which means that there's a high level of participation. And for those who couldn't make it, I will make this thing available for them. The lecture, I will record it. I've recorded it and it will be available.
So, 47 out of what number?
Pardon me?
We've not seen the previous one.
Number? You indicated that participation is high.
I have about 50 students online. It has just dropped to 47.
Yeah, but okay, so you indicated that participation is high, and I was asking if you could give me an idea of the total number based on which you indicated that participation is high.
The evening is about 18 of them, if I'm not lying. And the weekend is about 40 something, correct? Nathaniel, how many are you?
We are around 35, 40.
Is Adam online?
Yes, Doc.
How many are you?
We are 18.
18, so 58. So if I have 50 out of 58, it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Doc, we've not seen the previous lecture, the recording of the previous lectures.
Really?
Yes.
I thought I provided a link. Okay, I will add all of them and send it to the link for you. So go to the Google Drive and there is a Zoom link over there. The links are there with the title of the topics. You click it and you get it. Okay? All right, Imbalu, you hear from me with regards to your thesis, okay?
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, goodbye and meet you next week at the same time, 1 o'clock. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye-bye.